Hi, I'm Liz Carrol, and welcome to Workplace Live. I'm the former A&D market manager, now art historian at San Jose State University. So our purpose here today is to create a conversation that motivates and inspires our A&D community by gaining perspectives of our guests, which offer insight of the past and the future of our industry. So discussing the ideas around education is especially relevant now as we continue to adapt and rethink new ways in which we work, learn, and teach. And now to introduce our panelists, here is a video.
Luca Nichetto is an internationally recognized industrial designer born in Venice, Italy, and grew up on the centuries-old Venetian glass-making island of Murano. After earning a degree in industrial design at UAV, University of Venice, he would begin his career with the Murano-based glassmaker Salviati, and later as a product designer for the world-famous Foscherini. Since Luca founded his Venice studio in 2006, followed by Stockholm in 2011, he has served as art director for many international brands, appointed as professor of design at the University of Venice, exhibited worldwide, and selected as the subject of retrospectives in London, Paris, Stockholm, and Venice. More recently, he designed the Luca sofa for Bernhardt Design. Jerry Helling is the president and creative director for Bernhardt Design. Helling repositioned Bernhardt from a domestic manufacturer of traditional wood furniture to international brand. Included in Helling's accomplishments is the development of the award-winning Go chair made of magnesium. Jerry Helling's achievements over his 25 years with Bernhardt are almost innumerable, but to be certain, he is probably best known for supporting university design education and mentoring. He established an annual design studio program for the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. Helling has also established ICFF Studio, offering young American designers a valuable opportunity to launch their careers. It would be fair to say that both Luca and Jerry are focused on process, but also thinking about the future.
I'd like to jump right in with this metaphor, Luca and Jerry, in thinking of design and education. An exchange of gifts that must be passed on is not only a device to prevent people from annihilating one another, but it also becomes a single experience creating a great commonality. I'm quoting the writer Lewis Hyde. Such gifts are what designers create. And taken a step further, we can also say we're describing the educational process. So beginning, and by the way, we have Luca participating from Stockholm and Jerry in New York. Luca, so you've been working professionally for just over 20 years. What inspired you to become an industrial designer?
Well, the truth is that the reason why I become a designer is not what inspired me, but was what surrounded me, because I grew up in Murano, this little island close to Venice, famous all around the world for the glass production. And my grandfather, my mom, a lot of my relatives, and of course, a lot of my friends was involved with this industry. So for me, since I was a kid, to see a drawing that was becoming an object was quite normal. So it was nothing really special in a way. And I, luckily, my teacher, when I was a kid, was telling to my parents that I was very talented to draw. So in the end, I started to study at the Institute of Art in Venice, the glass section, for many reasons. And then during the summertime, I was like with my classmates during like tour around the island, knocking the door of the different factory, trying to sell our drawings. And not because I want to be a designer, just because it was a way to make some money to have fun during the summertime with my friends. And only later I discovered that exists a job that is called designer. And when I discovered that, I decided to study industrial design in Venice. And I maintained this ritual of knocking the door of the different factories until, and the lucky part is very important, I met art director of Salviati, and Simon Moore. He was a professor at Royal College of Art in London, and in the same time art directing the glass company. And when he saw the folder full of my drawings, he just told me something that really attracted me. And he said that, okay, Luca, I can see that you're very talented, but you don't understand nothing what the company needs. But I hear that you live here in the island, so if you want to pass here every week, I can teach you what is the need from a company side. So I was very curious to see someone that want to buy my stuff, but don't want to produce, and just offer me the opportunity to teach me what a company needs. So I take that as an opportunity. And luckily, during that time, I met different designers and artists, from Anish Kapoor until Tom Dixon or Ross Lovegrove and many others. And it was amazing because I can see different approach. Someone was just doing the first rendering, other one was doing amazing sketch, hand sketch, others was doing models. So I learned somehow different kind of approach applied to the creativity of our point of view. And after 1 year, the company, Simon, gave me a brief. I was still studying at the UF, industrial design, and I designed my first collection of glasses, vases. And because the company was kind to pay me the royalties, I need to open my freelance position, so to be able to invoice the company. And that is how I started. So it was really more situation, and of course the island where I grew up that offered to me that.
Okay. And what role, I should say, how did education play a role in Italy? I mean, what were there challenges, opportunities in particular early on?
To be very honest, I think I learned much more the time that I was spending in the company than the time that I was studying at the university. I always being very critical, and I'm still very critical against the Italian university, especially in design, because I find that methodology is too much theoretical. And of course, it's very important to know the history and a lot of the different mindset of the old creators and why there is this discipline that everyone calls design. But I think it's also very important to have the chance to spend time in the workshop and understanding the industry and what the industry needs. And more, I think industry become complex. So it's not the same time of 30 or 40 years ago. So I was, as I say, very lucky to be born and raised in an island where production was very important. But if I don't have that, I think it will be even more difficult for me to start my career as a designer, because theory is important, as I say, but I think design is also much more based also in the knowledge of what is possible to do, how you can realize things, understanding. So it's not only shape and or art approach. I think there is a lot of industrial process that is very important, or not only industrial, also craft process that is very important to know.
Okay. Jerry, you're a great supporter of education, and you've championed other causes that feed into supporting designers' careers, like Be Original, an organization that educates the public about the value of authentic design. What drove you to initiate Bernhardt's program at Pasadena Arts Center?
I think Luca gave me the perfect opening when he said, oh, you're really talented, but you don't know what the company needs. That was really the starting point for me. I get so many applications and inquiries and submittals from young designers, and I just knew that they didn't know. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what the real world was like. They didn't know how to approach the process, and they were sending things that didn't have a relationship to what we actually did as a company. And I thought, you know, this is kind of a sad situation that these students are going to graduate and not really be prepared to go out there and get a job and work with people and understand what the process of creating and selling a product is. So that's the reason we started this as Art Center, that it was we tried to give them as realistic view of what it was going to be like to have their first gig with a company that was possible to do. So we started with a design brief. We happened to be the company they were going to be designing for, and we walked them through all the way from that design brief into ideation, and then refinement, ultimately into prototyping, and would have crits every week along the way. Took it all the way then to factory visits and showing them what would not work from their concepts, making it in production, because you can make anything one time. Making it in production is another story. So that was, I think, very eye-opening for a lot of students, saying, oh, you mean it works like this? And then carried it all the way through to them launching their products for us. And that involved working with them on their press releases, showing at furniture shows like ICFF in New York. And then luckily enough, they got paid commission, just like Luca does, for their work. So it really gave an idea of what this really looks like and how it plays out from your little idea to how something actually becomes a product.
Okay. Well, and you mentioned ICFF Studio, and of course that's been monumental for American designers. And I mean, how can we do a better job in the United States? You've mentioned this piece about the practical experience at Art Center, but how can we do a better job with design students and young emerging designers compared to our European counterparts?
Well, we have, let's say we've got a lot of latitude for growth in that area. We don't have, in this country, we don't have the government backing and government organizations that really take and nurture young designers and give them a world platform, like the British Design Council, which will take 50 designers to New York for ICFF and show their product. Or one of the better organizations is VIA in France, which is an association of manufacturers who pay dues, and those dues are used to help designers to help pay for the expense of learning how to really make a product. And you turn up with some amazing products working with business. And working with business is yet the other leg of doing this, that we don't do as much. There are not as the type of apprenticeship programs that there are in Germany. So we have we have a long way to go as far as how we're going to really support young designers and bringing them into the business world, because I mean, there are only several different ways you can go when you graduate with a product design degree. You've got to be lucky and very focused if you want to stay in product and not move into interior planning or something like that. So we need to, as a country, we need to do a lot of these things. We're doing so much better than we did. There weren't platforms like ICFF Studio, and now there are quite a lot of them. There are a lot of competition, and I believe the press, as embattled as they have been over the past 15 years economically, have really started to do a good job talking and writing about American design.
Okay, that's good to hear. So this is for both Jerry and Luca. Today, you really can't leave social issues behind when you're conceptualizing, be it pandemic or racial injustice. What is the designer's mission today in developing product?
Oh, Luca, you have to go first.
Thank you.
In the video, it showed you doing all the work and me standing around a cocktail party. So you must know the answer to this.
Well, I was observing quite a lot during since the pandemic starts. The first reaction of the design community was a lot design for emergency or designing for fear. And honestly, I don't think that is my personal opinion. I don't think that we can design for that right now. It's too early because there is so many things that we don't know. So for me to see a designer that, for example, is designing a protection mask with some common material is fine, it's a nice exercise, but it's also a misinterpreting message saying to the community that, okay, I don't have a clue about what need to be the material or what need to be the way to protect in reality your face from the virus. And then I start to do a product for that. And so I saw a lot of these kind of things that was really, I mean, I was also following this, conversation between Paolo Antonelli and Alice Rostrom about design for emergency. And I'm totally in the other part, because I think our goal as a designer is also to be able to offer to people a moment of happiness, not a moment of emergency. So of course, if a government is knocking my door and say, listen, Luca, there is this material, these things. So the government or healthcare association, whatever, came to me and say, respect this protocol, try to do something that make people have less fear because we need to deal with that for a while. That is something different. But I think I also consider that the coronavirus, or the COVID-19 crisis, just jumped into a bigger crisis, that is the environmental crisis. So it was a big accelerator of many things that probably sooner or later we need to face. And of course, we need to deal with that in 4 or 5 months and not in 10 years. But I think to be visionary and trying to apply your creativity and your, putting your antenna and try to capture what is going on, I think that is also part of the life of to be a designer. and seeing also how the house is changing, the people working at home, how the people are spending time rediscovering rituals that they forgot to have. That is something that is very, I mean, interesting, let's say. Also, if using the word interesting in this moment is kind of weird, but it's interesting to see how a designer can really be part of a redesigning a kind of social life, and with deep value on what the people need first. And I think that part is quite interesting for me to explore more. For example, just because I have here, during the pandemic, I was looking, everyone was at home baking. And I say, why I'm not what I did as a studio, we did an open source project. So you can download the file from our website. So we designed a cookie cutter because I say, I like the idea that you can do cookie. So I shared the recipe of my grandmother. And it's a small, tiny project. It's not that I want to change the world with that, but at least I can offer 5-10 minutes of fun to a family that was locked down, and not just to design another mask. That is for now. Maybe in the future, when we know better, we can do also mask.
Oh, am I supposed to jump in?
Yeah, yeah.
I need a cue. Yes, I think Luca and I were laughing a couple of months ago about designing for the pandemic, and that is that he doesn't do that, and I don't do that. I think this has broad implications. I think one of the good things that come out of this is the machine creating product and waste that hurts the environment, of just throwing millions and millions of products into the marketplace each year has to slow down and be rethought, which I think is a wonderful thing. That there are going to be less products being made, but hopefully they're going to have a reason to exist. In the interim, I think design has to almost be thought of as a different, designers have to look at design, maybe not as product, maybe not as space, but as more of the design thinking concept of, here's a problem, how do I solve it? And what needs to be maybe physically designed to go along with that. It could be designing just a process. I really love what David Rockwell's doing with the restaurants in New York, where he's going into particularly hard-hit areas and helping them create outside dining opportunities in parking lots and empty parking spaces, and is having to design a portable program that can then be moved somewhere else. So I think it's design stepping into some of these social issues and creating experiences and helping people get through this and financially get through it, which ultimately may result in new products. But I think it's a whole different, an entirely different thought process about what design is. It's not just product. Does that make any sense?
Oh, but I mean, I agree with you. For example, before the pandemic, I was starting a collaboration with an Italian brand that is called Metalco. And they are producing urban furniture, like for park, for benches, for really the outdoor, but more for the city furnishing, let's say. And we discovered that a lot of the city center, especially in Europe, of a lot of cities, somehow was losing population because the price was going up, the renting was quite big, etc., etc. So you mentioned the work of Rockwell, and I'm very interested in what he's doing because he does a studio also, a parklet. That means a project that is a platform that is exactly the size of a parking slot. And in this platform, we study the different behavior of people, for example, having a drink or charge the phone or just sit and relax or parking the bike, etc., etc. So we developed this product considering this kind of social situation. When the pandemic started, the project was in advanced status, and of course offered to us another opportunity to implement even more this project, knowing that the space outside become also important, especially now, to be in a line or waiting your turn to go in, or just being in an open space to have the distance between a table and another, etc., etc. It was very interesting for me to see that also this kind of project was born before, but adapt, because the meaning was really thinking about people and how the people live, what is the real behavior of people. And as Jerry say, in the last, I can say 10 years, especially in the furniture industry, I mean, there was so many products every year. And some company was fighting to each other, just changing little details or a stitching. And then the most important thing was the price, in a way. And that created really like, I don't know, also as a designer, to be honest, every year to be able to, to propose something new, in the end, we was not proposing something new, it was repeating yourself. And the repetition is extremely dangerous for creativity in a way, for the company in the other way, and especially for our planet, because there was no need of this amount of products.
So thank you, Luca and Jerry. Should we turn it over to Q&A at this point in time, Rika? Or do we have time for another question?
I think maybe it's 9:30 now, so why don't we pull up the Q&A, and we actually, at this time, first of all, there have been some comments of people agreeing with what you guys are saying and making some great points, so that's great to hear. As far as the questions, we have one for each of you all. For Luca, what projects are you working on now? If any.
Bernhardt, of course.
Of course, I have a project with Terry that we are working right now, but we have a lot of, luckily we have a lot of things that we are working with. We are doing we are working with Stanway and Sons. We are doing a piano, and we are working with Ginori Carrying Group. We are doing a home fragrance collection. We are doing a project with Swatch, so we are doing a watch, and of course we still working also with different furniture or lighting. But in the last 2-3 years, I decided to be more multidisciplinary somehow. So try not to just focus on the furniture part, but trying also to work wider in a way. And so we are also doing a fashion collection that is funny at this moment where fashion is collapsing, but we are trying to rethinking also how can be done clothes. And so we are working in different fields, and I'm quite happy and just as I said before, also lucky to have good partners that believe in us and giving us the opportunity to continue to do our job.
Thank you. And for Jerry, how is Bernhardt approaching product lifecycle and sustainability issues?
We've always begun that conversation with, if you do not create disposable products, you're taking the most important step you could ever take in the entire environmental conversation. So we're very much involved in all the environmental programs, the life cycle analysis, all of that kind of stuff, which is helpful for recycling and repurposing and that sort of thing. But our biggest focus is trying to make sure that the product that we put out is not disposable. There are some products that it's going to break in 2 years, or that trend will be over in 2 years, but we want to sell them something new. We try to make things that are going to last and have a certain appeal for a very long period of time. And as a company, in addition to doing your homework about how environmentally correct your processes are and what might go into the product, we've always thought that's the most responsible thing we can do, is create products that have an emotional connection with people, that will last, that can be repurposed.
Another question has come in, very general, broad question. What do you see happening around design in the workplace? And I would say maybe just what's the first thing that comes to mind as far as changes or improvements or progress? And that can be for the two of you.
I mean, for sure, we are observing a situation where people will spend also in the future more time probably working. I don't want to say the entire week from home, but they will spend much more time at home than in the past. And of course, this will probably change a little bit the size of the working place. Maybe they become a little bit smaller in a way, because you don't need so many workstations for all the employees and so on, but maybe there will be a turn on that. So there will be optimization in that sense of the space. But in the same time, it's quite interesting what will happen on the residential point of view, that the home part we need transform a little bit to become a little bit more having also a space where you can work. And so there will be probably other typology that maybe in the past, because for example, in Italy, I remember when my friend, the father of a friend of mine was a doctor. He had his own little studio at home, or a lawyer have his little studio at home. But then also the plan of the houses and the apartment change, and that specific place disappear. And probably in the future will reappear again, and you need to refurnish in that part again. But so the hybrid object that can work in an office and at home, that was a trend, I think will be even more strong in the future, to have products that emotionally give you something, but in the same time, they are also functional.
Excuse me. My view on this is that we don't know. It's too early to know how this thing plays out. where we're going to be working, how we're going to be interacting. We know what we know today. And we know we have to go into offices and places of work and gathering places and restaurants and hotels and make them safer to be in. So that is our step one. And then when a vaccine, a workable vaccine is developed, that's going to change the situation completely different. We're going to be somewhat scarred humans that want to go back in time in some way. And at that point in time, I think is when we're really going to see how the home and the office adapts for the long term going forward. I think right now there's a lot of product being made and developed to handle this particular part of the crisis of keeping people 6 feet away from each other and keeping them covered and safe. But we're going to have to move into a whole new area of what we want our life to look like afterward, because it's going to have a big change on us. We're going to think differently than we did before. So I think it's a little early, or maybe I'm just chicken to give it advice at this point in time.
Fair enough. We did have a few more questions that came in, and since we're about 10 minutes over time, I think what we'll do is we'll try and address those in our white paper that we'll be posting of this this talk on our website early next week. So just keep an eye out for that, and we'll try to answer all the questions we couldn't get to today.
Okay, so in closing, we know that fostering growth and education for the next generation, designers, be it interior or industrial, will impact the future of our industry. So we wanted to use this platform to engage on the topic. And we want to thank you who joined us today in the conversation. And a sincere thanks to Luca and Jerry for sharing your insights as champions of education and practical experience. And a final thanks to Katie Baroni of Mira Contract, who also helped in this venture today. So until we meet again, stay safe, connected, and inspired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.